going to go into the third and final segment here. That is going to be on adherence. And we are going to refer to some of the sessions that myself, Tiffany, Deb, and Katie, all persons living with rheumatic diseases, and reporting back of the research we've been seeing at the American College of Rheumatology, or ACR, Annual Convergence 2021. So adherence. This is not a topic that's new or novel,
Right.
or I don't think anything that we're all unfamiliar with.
Right,
So
exactly.
Deb, I'm going to let you take it away. Tell us a little bit about what they've been talking about here.
Yeah. So the title of the topic was Experts Will Discuss Strategies to Improve Treatment Adherence. And there were two doctors in specific. One of them, let's see, Maura Daly Iverson, is a PT, Master of Public Health, a DPT, which I'm not sure what that is. But again, she has got her fingers in it. She also is involved in pharmacology. The other one is a professor and chair of a pharmacy practice. And her name was Kamala Nola. And it was just looking at what their perspectives were. And they talk about treatment adherence is and always has been a problem. And I guess, I'm a very adherent person, so I don't think about, the lack of adherence. And this one doctor, she's even closing by saying that adherence is one of those things that keeps me up at night, which I find that fascinating, because how they broke this whole adherence down is into different categories of what kind of person you are, and just how it benefits the patient who is actually adherent. And it talks about, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about pharmacological interventions or things like exercise and physical activity. You have to put in a lot of time, effort, and energy into just getting people to adhere to what their recommendations are. And without adherence, patients will never gain the benefits that you and they expect. Yeah, so it was really interesting as far as that goes. And one person talked about they know that once a day dosing is always better than multiple dosings throughout the day. As far as going to 2 and then 3 times a day, 3 times a day is actually pushing people over the edge. If you keep it at morning and evening, those blocks are a little bit easier to, folks to be adherent to, versus the middle of the day, which you're working, you're interrupted, your schedules are different as far as that goes. They say that the adherence definitely declines as far as those things go. The goal is always to make the regimen as simple as possible for patients. And working around the patient's lifestyle. So if you have somebody who's on like the overnight shift, it's, again, you've got to think about how they're taking their medications and how they're adhering to their medication prescriptions.
It's interesting. I thought I heard one presenter say something as far as, to make patients more adherent, the one prescription, they can break it up into 2 doses during the day, as long as it's within a 24-hour period. So I think it was like a once a week thing. So it's interesting how it's kind of, I don't know, there's the flexibility, but it's also gets back to having that conversation as far as what does work for you, what will make you, the patient, more adherent.
Yes, exactly. And they talk about even improving adherence by taking a lot of communication and strategizing between the patient and the pharmacist, and how it's going to most likely work better. I know they talked about, I'm looking for it right now, but it talks about, you've got to work in improving adherence by adapting to each of the patient's attitudes and their behavior skills, which again, I never would have broken it down to that level before. But
that's why I've been frantically over here trying to find, which I cannot find. We seriously need to add a search engine to our website, because I'm trying to find in our massive amounts of AI Arthritis Voices 360 talk shows, part of our debrief from, I thought it was ACR 2020, but I could be wrong. We did a talk show about it, and it was on mindfulness, and it was called like Grit. Oh, here it is. Grit, Gratitude, and Grace.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, that title.
And
yes,
it was from the ACR 2020. Grit, Gratitude, and Grace: How Positive Mindset Can Improve Pain and Resilience. But it went into adherence and how different people
yes,
are going to adhere differently, because we all are, I mean, we're all different people, and we have adherence is more than just a timing thing.
yeah. Exactly. And they talk about, someone could be a nurse at an infusion center just calling to remind somebody of their appointment, or it can be a spouse or a companion who helps keep them on track as far as their medications go. But then they also talk about even teenagers. They are, reliant on their parents when they're younger. But then it says they rely on their parents for adherence, but as children age into adolescence and want more responsibility and control. But you also have the teenager, but they also point out you have those teenagers who don't want to appear different from their peers. So, there can be a huge adherence issue with that in general. Because I know that, again, when I was in high school, I got permission to ride the elevator. In my 4 years, I think I did it once.
I didn't. I had permission to, and I'm like, nope,
Yeah.
never doing it.
Yeah, because again, you're drawing attention to yourself. So why do that? Yeah, just those silly little things. And the last point that they actually say is, again, it keeps them up at night, and the cost associated with poor adherence are significant, and not just to the patient, but to the whole healthcare system. Adherence is a problem that we need to fix and really work on. What motivates somebody to, be compliant and, do that?
What motivates you, Deb? Let's answer the question.
I think it is my motivation to feel better. And actually, if I'm following exactly what my doctor's telling me, I am not going to flare as often. Again, all of this is individual, but I'm at least, I'm trying to improve my chances of leading, a fairly, what I consider normal for me life. And with not as many interruptions, which again, I'm going through my own interruptions now with back things, but which I never saw coming. But again, you get those little curveballs here and there, and I'm just trying to keep moving along and making sure that I have as little more damage as possible. That's my biggest driver. How about you, Katie?
Katie?
Yeah.
I was going to say pretty much the same thing now, but when I was first diagnosed, it was almost the opposite. The medications were making me feel worse. So I thought I wasn't adherent. I stopped taking them, because why make myself feel worse when, I could do something that I thought maybe would make me feel better.
So did you tell your rheumatologist when you went back? Did you tell them that you didn't, or did you ever tell your parents?
Yes, sort of.
Yes,
so I've had the same rheumatologist for the whole 20 years. So okay. I think at a few, I think I did it twice where I stopped my medication. Okay. And she's like, oh my God, like, you can do that. Like, it's your choice, but you should have maybe tapered it off. Like there's a way to do it. I'm like, oh crap, I didn't know.
I actually did the same thing on one medication because I heard, and it was dealing with cognitive issues. And I stopped a medication after reading and actually feeling that I was having a hard time finding my words. So I stopped it cold turkey and landed myself in the hospital. because of it. So yeah, so again, that was a lesson learned, and an interesting one as well, because sometimes you just don't think about those things as far as how it can,
You can just start it. So why can you just stop it?
Yeah. And adherence can be, I was going to say, just adherence can be such an interesting topic, because again, we have patients that choose not to go on medications. And what we look like, I kind of have said this before, like Katie and I have had these diseases long enough to where we had damage before we got really good therapy, because we didn't have a choice. That was what was offered at the time.
You were diagnosed pre-biologics for sure.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Just
so
clarifying that for those who don't know you very well.
Right. And again, been on medications for 38 years, and biologics have only made an appearance for the last, 20 some odd years, little over 20, right around there. And so I've got the first 10 plus years of 10 to close to 20 years of just damage done because they couldn't keep my disease under good control. So I keep thinking that we're the last of our generations that's going to look like we do, with as much deformities and things like that. But Tiffany brought up a really great point, which was just, what about those folks that choose not to go on biologics and just
treated?
Yes.
Just,
again, freedom of choice, which is great, but yeah.
It's not
a lot of the doctors. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, a lot of the doctors I'm hearing when they're talking about adherence in these sessions, it's like they're echoing the same kind of talking points to encourage people to get vaccines, as far as, there are risks, but it's, kind of a normal risk, and please still do it, take the medication, or have the conversations, ask your questions, and, come to a decision together. Don't just choose one thing without having that conversation. And a lot of
knowing what the consequences could be.
Not understanding the science, or fear of something, quote unquote, unnatural, and all these kind of other things that are maybe becoming more prevalent in this kind of pandemic COVID era. So
what was in that, just what you just said brought me back to Sheryl Crow had a quote from this year. Can you quote it, Katie?
I need to find the exact words because it was very articulate, but it's something as far as, my body was being unnatural first, so I'm going to take anything I can to be, a natural right back against it, or to fight against it. So but basically you started it.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
So our bodies started it. Sorry, Tiffany.
Oh, that's okay. So when Deb was mentioning this, when she's like, we're going to essentially become extinct, like this generation of persons who didn't have a choice, we are now, Katie just had her double hip replacement, and now Deb's experiencing her spine, shifting in different directions, like her hands have and her feet have, and it's these things are happening. And I said, and what, as to her point, I said, oh, you don't know that. I mean, we'd like to say that, because there is so much data now that says this is what happens when you don't use your treatment. But what unfortunately, and it is everybody's own prerogative and their own right, but there are more people, more and more, saying, well, I'm not going to use those treatments. So it's kind of this, well, we're going to see. So if hopefully things go really well, but there's a chance that in 10, 20 years from now, we're going to see a repeat, because the people who chose natural and didn't,
or the other barriers, they didn't have access to care, they didn't have the proper diagnosis, couldn't afford proper treatments. So there are other kind of factors at play too. So I would hope we would be extinct, but I know, I'm still gonna hope, but
that's true. But
we're the dinosaurs. We're the dinosaurs out there.
It might be great in this case.
And I was going to add, and Katie did it for me, which was great, was that that's one type of non-adherence is choice, in deciding, different ways.
Right.
And the other ones is Katie just mentioned, but I wanted to take this opportunity also to just mention when we talk about equity and access to treatments, and how that goes into kind of the whole diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI, that's of such a focus today, is depending on what culture you're in, this also, or ethnicity or background or upbringing, or all of these things factor in. And there's a very large population of people who are really just interested in a cure. And
Right.
so I know, I'm going to give a shout out, Global Healthy Living Foundation, Creaky Joints, a good friend of ours. I was in a meeting with them where we both are the only two patient organizations that serve on this health equity board. And they gave an amazing presentation. So I didn't just pull this out of my own knowledge. I'm giving credit where credit is due. They presented this information on the Hispanic community in particular, how the top things that are Googled on these sites are a cure. And then when you come to the cure, the things that are shown are all natural. And so there is this real push in the community to not be on disease modifying agents, to not be on a biologic. And then you also have influence from family members who are saying, well, we're more interested in a cure. But when you type in cure and do a Google search, it's coming in for things that are not, because biologics aren't a cure. And so there's this really big eye-opening thing happening. And we're talking about media and mixed messages and all of that, this is such a deep topic. So I think as we're laying this again on the table, and we're asking those who are tuning in, whether you're a doctor, you're a patient, your family member, whatever that might be, what is your experience with adherence or lack thereof? Why do you take treatments? Why do you choose not to? What is your ideal? And how does this all play into how you manage your disease? And then if you're a person in the healthcare, what are your stories? What are some of the things that you wish you could communicate better to?
Can you imagine? Yeah, can you imagine being a doctor that is assuming your patient is taking all the medications that they've laid out for them? Again, putting this package together for this patient, and when they see them back, see that they're doing terribly, and assume perhaps that the patient has been still compliant without, and then how frustrating would that be? And after all this time, this doctor's trying to piece this all together and spend time with this patient, and then go to find out that they're not taking half their medications. Again, which would be scary to tell your doctor, just, being ashamed that they're not, or not knowing what the circumstances are, whether it's just the side effects, like you said, Katie, and what the side effects of what some medications can be. And then for the doctor assuming and just not getting the full picture from
the lack of open communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I'm looking at the notes from this particular session. It was called Adherence Tools for Treatment Success. And on the medication treatment pharmacologic sector of the presentation, that's what they really boiled it down to. What Katie just said is effective communication. That includes patient education, barriers, opportunities to explore tailored preferences and goals, regular discussions, exploring areas of concern, making interventions available when needed, aka shared decision making. And I'm going to also, that was my dog hacking in the background. I mean, you hear that or not? Sorry.
I heard
way back there in bowl one.
Yeah.
But the other part of this research that they were talking about was not about pharmacologic. We're talking about pharmacologic, but it was about exercise. And that the barriers being, again, no shocker here, flaring. That's sort of a big one. Fatigue, pain, which I'm sorry, but fatigue does go with flaring. Even though they separated it, we
being
know.
in pain. Yeah, being in pain.
And pain. So they have flaring, fatigue, and pain, stiffness. And I didn't even see my later notes. I wrote, "Isn't this flaring?" I didn't even see
hello.
that. Lack of time, lack of access, lack of desired results, fear of exercise. Although I did write some comments here too, that lack of access, lack of desired results, that's everybody. That's the whole population. I don't think that's specific to us.
Agreed.
I mean, that's an excuse. I mean, they wouldn't have shirts to say my diet starts tomorrow or whatever if they, if that wasn't a universal issue. But
fear
anyway,
of exercise, I think, is much more, I don't know, relevant to our community because
we are so like this because that's what I wrote. Because I know when I first got diagnosed, I
didn't want to move.
Your poor dog.
He's okay.
Okay.
I was in my late 30s, so different than Deb and Katie, who were diagnosed in their teens, and I was extremely athletic. I played football, I played softball, I played volleyball, I kickboxed. I mean, I was like, so then all of a sudden, especially kickboxing, which I loved, and my doctor's like, "You can't kickbox," and I was like, "What?" And then I remember like people online going, "Well, do swimming," and I was like, "What? I cannot go like to a water aerobics from kickboxing and football. I mean, you gotta give me like some kind of medium here." So I know personally, I struggled with that. And what Katie said, I was so scared that I was going to hurt myself because I didn't know my boundaries. I didn't know my limitations. And I actually, I thought about maybe trying to get some help, but then it was this issue of what people who work at a gym even know what I have. And I had asked this person, and they're like, "Oh yeah, my mom has rheumatoid arthritis." And I stupidly believed the guy, and he was like giving me this workout, and I just laughed. I'm like, "I can't do this." And he was like, "It's just arthritis. Yeah, you're fine." And I was like, "All right,
okay." And you set me up.
Clearly, you just wanted to take my money. But again, we all have different reasons. But I think that one is a universal in our community. I agree with you, Katie, and I think it's there's a lot of facets of that. From what I said as a person who went from an athlete to now what to, I mean, anyway, just a new diagnosis. What is my limit? What can I do? What's going to hurt? What's going to make me flare?
Yeah. Should I go into a batting cage and try
Oh God. Yeah, she got me on that one. Yeah, I did that. I did it.
You know what? We also push ourselves. We know we're going to pay for it. I mean, we may not know to what extent we have to.
So now I have to tell the story because it got brought up. So I guess it was like 3 years ago.
About 3.
Yes, about 3 years ago. And my stepson was getting into baseball, and one of the things that I always said when I was first diagnosed, which was 2009, I have not played softball. I have not swung a bat. I have not, mainly because I was so scared it was going to hurt my fingers and my wrists. I was like, impact is going to hurt. And I was just so scared. And so I would walk by like fields and see people play and be like, "Oh, I'm so sad," like all these memories. And I have dreams of myself hitting home runs, and it was kind of like, and so all this time I kept saying, it just kind of is what it is. And then I had been feeling kind of better, and I'm like, my husband was going to take him to the batting cages, and I'm watching them, and I'm like feeling it, and I was like, I'm going to try, I'm going to hit some, and I wanted to show off because I'm good, I used to be, and I was like, my stepson will think I'm cool. And so I get up there, and lo and behold, I'm like, smack, boom, and he's like, wow. And so I hit like, I don't know, 10 or 12 or whatever. I'm like, yeah. And then we go to watch him play, and I'm sitting in the bleacher, and I'm like,
uh-oh,
I can't get up. Like I literally couldn't move. I couldn't go forward. I couldn't go backwards. I couldn't turn. I literally was like frozen. My spine had completely just, my husband had to like, I mean, I was like in almost a sitting motion trying to walk to the car. It was awful. That was the worst flare can remember having in ever since I really had started being on treatment, and that lasted for weeks, and I would say even months before I finally like reset. That was stupid.
Again, yeah. I do the same things because like my husband's like, should you really be doing that? And I'm just kind of like, I'm going to anyway.
Well, I think the point, the moral, I should say, I'm not by any means saying it would be stupid for anybody to play sports.
Right.
What was stupid on my part was that I have a spondyloarthritis, so that's of the spine. I was focused on hurting my hands, and I wasn't thinking about impact.
Right.
It's twist, impact, impact. And it was like when the doctor said, don't do kickboxing when you thought I had RA. Don't swing and smack a bat if you have not exercised in that area for 2 decades.
It was like, whoa. Your body goes into shock. Like, what just did you just do?
What happened? But by the way, my hands feel fine. So
it's like do things, but like ease yourself into doing things. Don't go like full force immediately and just try it out.
Full force. That's what I meant. But
still,
that was not smart on my part.
Yeah.
But I probably will never do it again because it was the impact part of it. It was the smack of the twisting and whatever. And actually more recently, just trying to go to the gym, they have those like sit-up things where they roll. You're like on a bench and you pull them up. I couldn't do it. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't do it. It wasn't that I couldn't do the sit-up. It wasn't like my stomach couldn't do it. I was like, oh my God, I can't lay down. I couldn't even get onto the machine to do the exercise.
So you're like, okay.
That was an eye opener and a little embarrassing, I might say. I was like in the gym looking really awkward.
Probably really crooked or something, and just going, I'm not gonna go. I can't move that way. It's just
on the machine. I was like, well, that was embarrassing.
That's why I love physical therapy, because all the physical therapists could like direct you what to do, but also everyone else there was also at a similar physical level. But they're like my people. Like everyone here isn't exactly healthy. They're my people. So
I'm right there with
anyway. But no, adherence is, it comes in many shapes and forms. So we're not saying it's just pharmacologic. We're not pharmacologic. We all have a variety of things that together help to manage our diseases, and all of those need to be considered. And I know that personally, I need to think of exercise more than I do. I put it off to the side, and that and mental health and all of those things, really come into the same package. And I think personally, I'm too treatment dependent. And while I know that works for me, I need to follow up with the exercise and the mindfulness.
The other aspects.
That's where I'm lacking. I admit it. That's where I am not very good at being adherent.
Right. I would probably agree with you. And just getting out there. Although after both of my foot surgeries, I was to the point where, it was still towards the tail end of COVID. And again, we're still there, but just going out for daily walks. And that, again, my husband would always just kind of like, you let me know when it's time to circle back, because we still got to get back. So don't go so far that you can't just, turn around and come back. So just going a little further each day. And that felt really great. But then all of a sudden the weather started changing, and
I was going to say momentum, keeping up like a positive, small incremental increases, but not like when the weather changes and you want to stay at home, that can like kill your momentum. And then it's so hard to like bring it back again. And if you overdo it. So it's just kind of keeping up that pace.
That really is is like a good comment, because when we're thinking about adherence to medication, it's more about, I need to take that pill today, or I need to take that shot every 2 weeks or whatever. It's more about timing. Whereas the non-pharmacologic involves, in a way, a lot more work.
Right. And they even talked about that because they were talking about both the pharmacologic in that article, as well as, you know, exercise and self-motivated goals and things like that. And sometimes it's harder to keep your, you know, your head wrapped around what your goals are. And you're like, yeah.
Being your own cheerleader, like giving yourself that pep talk, like, yes, this is worth it. You know, this will help me. This, yeah. Rah, rah.
Yeah. We all need a rah rah in our back pockets, don't we?
Yes.
I like that.
I did see a joke as far as if you need a reminder to take your medication, do it at the same time you feed your pet because they will not let you forget. I thought that was kind of cute.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. And sometimes it's like holding your, especially for exercise or anything like that, because I agree with you, Tiffany. I am very much like you, you know, treatment, you know, adherent and things like that. But it's a matter of, we need to hold each other accountable. So maybe I need to text you guys and say, remind me, I need to.
and celebrating wins. I saw that too, as far as when you do go to the gym, you know, tell other people and let's celebrate it. Let's acknowledge it because it is something worth, you know, being happy about. So.
You know, we've talked about that. I know, you know, here and there, like, oh yeah, maybe we should, you know, have a group online. And it's like, you know, when celebrate all of the different therapeutic, you know, like, oh, you did, you know, an adherence essentially. It's like an adherence support group. Where it's like, well, this is what I did today, or sharing recipes for not, you know, for anti-inflammatory stuff. But again, no, but it would have to be set up where people have to know they respect others. There's no condemning somebody,
bullying, none of that, right?
For their choices. It's just about supporting and sharing ideas to adhere to good health. So, you know, just again, maybe we'll do it eventually, especially as more research comes out, because we could even share, we could add research that's, you know, and I mean help researchers, right? Have a sign up sheet, who's interested in being part of these studies that the researchers are doing. Wow, look at that, just whoop, came up with a project right there. All right. Well, that's all I had on adherence. Anything else, Deb, Katie? Do we miss anything?
Yeah. I think great conversation.
I was going to say, I know I saw some doctors say that he recommended, like, ask your patients when they take the medicine. And if they hesitate, you know that there's an issue. If they can't tell you, oh, I take this weekly pill on this day, then you know that needs more of a conversation. So I thought that was kind of an interesting, you know, tip that he threw out there.
Yeah, tips and tricks how to, you know,
open up that conversation,
right? Like have the patient be more open and honest of what's really going on.
All right, good. That was good. That was a good segment. So I think that wraps it up. We never can do this in under an hour. We try, it just never happens.
But again, like you mentioned, it's going to be broke out into 3 different snippets. So I think that is going to be magical for some folks, and some folks are just going to hang in there and listen to us kind of talk about the 3 different topics together.
Binge watch us. Yeah, absolutely.
Hang out. And again, where the goal here, this program has been in pilot program form, which means testing, do different what works, what doesn't work, for the last couple of years. And this is the last time we're doing it as a pilot. So any feedback that you all could give on things that you would like to see on the debrief, what's working for you, what's not. We have moved to full plus segmenting them out. We are going to evolve to coming back to some of the topics. So it's most important to have your conversation, your comments about these. And if you don't want to do them on the YouTube channel, you could always email at us at info@aiarthritis.org. Just put whatever the topic is in the subject line, or find us on social media at AI Arthritis and message us on any of our platforms. So there's always a way that you can continue the conversation, but the best way is to sign up for AI Arthritis Voices. That is our new program where we will connect you to as many opportunities as we possibly can, and whether that is in research, is that public policy or legislation, whether that's helping spread awareness. There are so many things, and we're international. So Again, aiarthritis.org. If you didn't listen to some of the earlier segments, aiarthritis.org/aiarthritis voices. There's an application. It just takes about 5 or 10 minutes to fill out. If there's anything in particular about any of the programs that we've talked about, this Go With Us to conferences, if you're interested in being more a part of that, there's a space at the end of the form where you can say, oh, I heard you talk about this. I'm interested in being more part of that, or maybe the talk show, if you've heard us talk about some of the episodes. We always have opportunities for that as well. So sign up, it's free, and hang out with us and keep the conversation going. So that's it. I think we're done. We have another debrief, and then we are moving on to ULARC 2022.
Yes, exactly. How exciting.
All right. Well, Katie, Deb, thank you for joining me with this debrief, and until tomorrow.
Yep.
Everybody have a good night, and we're signing out from ACR 2021.